Time. It's tea time. It's tea time. It's tea time. It's tea time. Cozy for your tea. It's tea time. It's tea time.
It's tea time on the Smart HVAC Marketing Podcast.
Want to keep your tea hot? It is not a mystery. Get yourself a tea cozy. It's a part of history. It was big.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. Smart HVAC Marketing Podcast, where we believe the best idea wins, and we are here to help you generate lots of good ideas. And to do so, we have got to bring on smart people to kind of help us get there. And I'm not that smart, so I always like to bring people on that are just way smarter than me and let them share what kind of experience they've got. So today we've got an incredible guest from Nexstar, Carrie, Fraser. How are you doing?
I am well, Eric. How are you today?
I'm good. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for all of our listeners out there and let them know a little bit more about who you are and what you do at Nexstar.
Absolutely. So yeah, my name is Carrie Fraser. I am the VP of Operations at Nexstar Network. And we are, for those of you who don't know, we're an industry, we're an organization, I should say, member-owned organization serving the trades. And we coach and train the world's best tradespeople to be the world's best business people.
Wow. I apologize. I got your last name wrong. I said Fraser.
Fraser, kind of like Fraser. Fraser.
Kind of like, have you seen Outlander? That TV show?
You know, I've watched a couple of episodes.
I think his last name was Fraser.
It was spelled the correct way too, my way. Not Fraser as in, Fraser Crane, but Fraser.
Yeah. Well, we're here at the Women in HVACR event in Phoenix, Arizona. It's been an incredible event. I'll be honest, the weather has been a slight letdown. There we go. I want to make sure I got that one right. But it's still been a great event nonetheless. Carrie, what have been some of your takeaways so far from the keynote or maybe from the welcome reception?
Yeah, absolutely. So our early keynote this morning was Lisa Ryan, and it was all about gratitude strategies. And she has coined gratigees. She had 5 different gratigees, and it was just all about the power of gratitude in your life and how that helps not only you personally, but your entire network and your entire organization. So she had some great things to say.
Yeah. I was really intrigued by what she shared about how angry thoughts can affect your immune system, and how like for every 7 minutes of you being angry, your immune system like gets weaker and you can get sick and die.
Right. For every 5 minutes in anger, you have 6 hours of stress that your body feels.
Yeah. A few other things, if you weren't here, I would encourage you to be present next year at the event because this has been great. But I'll give you a quick Spark Notes version of her keynote. Just some things that really stuck out to me. One was having stay interviews instead of exit interviews. I mean, you still have the exit interview, I guess, but a stay interview with your employees and ask them why they're staying at your company. I think that was pretty powerful. And then also about just acknowledgement and reinvesting in training and all that good stuff.
Absolutely. I think also that engagement is everyone's responsibility. It's my responsibility. It's, whatever anybody can bring to the table. It's all of our responsibility to do what we can to keep engaged and be engaged and give those gratigees a go, those 5 gratigees she had.
Yeah. So for our listeners out there who have been just faithfully listening to the world's best podcast over the past year and a half, you remember that we had on Julian Scadden from Nexstar, and he shared just some really phenomenal stuff. And I was talking to him, and I was like, hey, I'd love to get Nexstar back on the podcast. And he spoke very highly about having Carrie on. So Carrie, I'd love to just know more about what you feel are just some important things that are facing the industry right now. And maybe for 2023 is like an outlook.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting. I'll take you back a little bit on my trajectory in this industry as well. I've been in the industry just over 5 years myself. I came from outside of the industry, kind of in the world of marketing and creative and kind of the big corporation stuff, and landed myself at Nexstar just over 5 years ago, and really didn't know much about the industry, nor that there was an organization like Nexstar to help support and serve those members, and like I was saying earlier, turn them into the world's best business people as well. So I think particularly looking forward, the residential contractors that we work with, they are busier than ever. I think we definitely saw throughout the pandemic that people were at home, and those who were able to could continue to improve on their homes, and they are, and they were, and they did. And those contractors and our members have gone through really quite a bit in terms of inventory shortages and supply chain management issues and things like that. And so I think getting on the getting getting inter or getting on top of those and finding out solutions and being creative and adaptable has been more important than ever. And I think that the world is just moving so quickly now that it's more important than ever to be able to continue to adapt and pivot to to whatever is coming up next.
Yeah, I really think the ability to pivot and adapt has been just been so crucial over the past few years because it seems like everything is constantly changing, which everything always changes, but it just seems like in particular, like for business owners, the way that things have been changing so quickly has just been ridiculous. Like the Uber driver that took me from the airport to the hotel here said that they had just announced in the Phoenix market here that there was only like 21 days of diesel fuel left. And like that got me thinking. I was like, yeah, that doesn't sound like an issue if you drive, a car that doesn't require diesel fuel, but trucks require, like an 18-wheeler requires diesel, and they transport heating and air conditioning units, and they transport food, and they transport all this stuff. And if there's not diesel for those things, how are we going to get them? So that backs up the supply chain even more for everything. And so what equipment and what availability you do have, the prices are going to go up on that even more. That gets passed down to the homeowner. And so it's just this constant, it's like a hamster wheel of change.
It is, and it's that creativity, as we were talking about in that you really have to tap into. We've had I was talking to a member, in terms of truck shortages and things like that, and just finding vehicles for the additional technicians that they're going to add has been ridiculously challenging, as we all know. And he's driving by a local dealership one time, and he looks and he sees about 3 or 4 trucks there, does a U-turn, goes right in, and makes a deal with that dealer in that moment. 2 of the 4 of them were already sold, but was able to just see that opportunity, grab it, and at least get a couple of trucks, and actually ended up shipping them across the country because that was a better solution than the nothing that they were getting in that other market.
Yeah. So it just seems like the only constant is change these days. And so, being able to adapt. And that's why I feel it's so important to pair up with some form of best practices group. Like there's so many of them out there. There's so many great ones. Nexstar is amazing. You've got Service Nation, which is great. You've got all these, it doesn't really matter what it is, but like joining one in particular, just to have that group to fall back on. Like we were talking about a few weeks back with Lawrence from Brody Pinnell is, I asked him, I was like, if you were in a tight spot and phone wasn't ringing, texts were quitting, what would be the first thing that you do? And his answer was, I would pick up the phone and I would call a fellow contractor and see what they're doing and see what they would do. And like, that's what best practices groups are great for, like Nexstar is, when the chips are down, you can pick up the phone and call someone from a similar market, not in your region. And it's just, you can get that support that you need.
It's all about that networking, actually, just what we're talking about here at Women in HVACR today as well. It's about building those connections with people in the industry. And the answer is always in the room. If you don't know, somebody in the room has the answer and knows that answer. And so organizations such as Nexstar and the others that are out there really afford people and owners and members that opportunity to be able to just connect and grow. And joining one of those organizations isn't the be all end all. It is not the silver penny. You have to get in there and you have to do the work. And the cool thing is that when you get those like-minded people together, there's nothing that can stop you. There's nothing you can't do.
Yeah, absolutely. So with 2023 rapidly approaching, from your perspective at Nexstar, What are you all advising for contractors, that are looking to grow and maybe even just stay afloat with all the changes?
Yeah, I think it really goes back, especially in these times of rapid change. It's focusing on those fundamentals.
Mhm.
You know, it's making sure that you're serving your customer, that you're serving your employees, and that you're remaining profitable. So it's sort of that three-legged stool, right? You can't really allow any one of those to get entirely out of alignment, or it's not going to mean great things. So there's, if you're focused just on the financial piece, the profitability piece, what might happen is your culture is going to suffer, and then you're going to lose your employees, somewhere else. So it's really those fundamental things that I think if businesses can dial in on and lock in on are going to be instrumental and crucial. And of course, recruiting. Everybody's talking about
Oh, yeah.
recruiting. It's the one of the biggest things that that our contractor members are talking about and looking for. People are looking for people to do the jobs, and so we as an industry, I think, have to start looking outside of this industry, and we have
Yeah.
to start growing our own, and we have to start creating those opportunities for populations and for professionals in other industries where you see good service. If you're in a restaurant and you've got an incredible wait staff, there's a great opportunity for you to look for somebody else, because that recruiting is really critical, especially as we're in this labor market and industry.
Yeah. Yeah, you hear stories all the time of contractors that understand that from a recruitment standpoint, like understanding that you can take someone with a good work ethic and just a good head on their shoulders, but doesn't know the first thing about fixing an air conditioning unit, and take that person with a willingness and then turn them into someone that is willing and able, like with skills. And I was on a recruitment panel at Service World Expo a couple years ago with Tucker from Yarborough and Sons, and he was mentioning a time where he was at a Subway and like this person was just making Subway sandwiches with like the biggest smile on his face, the nicest person he'd ever met in his life, and he was there with a few other colleagues, and they like offered him a job on the spot, and they were like,
I love it.
it's so like, yeah, finding the opportunity there. And another interesting thing, talking on recruitment, and this is a stat that I feel like I've probably overshared this, but there's 106,000 registered heating and air conditioning businesses in the United States. And then if you go look on the Census Bureau of people who have listed that their career is a heating and air conditioning technician, there's only 212,000. So if everything was a fair playing field, there would be two people at every company.
Right.
And it's crazy.
It is. It is. I mean, it's really one of the biggest challenges in this industry. So yeah, you got to look for those wait staffs and those Subway providers that are going to help us out.
Now, Carrie, you mentioned the three-legged stool and kind of how you want all three of those things to be the same length, so the stool isn't wobbly. But if a contractor had to, like, if all else was failing and they had to choose between the service or the profitability or the culture or any of this stuff, like, what would be the thing that you think they could just kind of get away with maybe not being super efficient at for a little bit while they, correct the business?
That's a really good question. I think you've got to, you're nothing without your people.
Mm-hmm.
You're nothing without your team. And if you don't have the team in place that is with you on the journey, you're not going to be able to get out to those customers. You're not going to be able to get the calls. You're not going to be able to get into the homes that is going to afford you the opportunity to earn the profit that you are due. So, I think it all stems and it all starts with your people and the culture that you build and the organization that you want to be and that you want to provide for your employees and for your staff, so that they're out there in your neighborhoods and in your communities all day, every day. They live there. They, have schools there. They have other activities there, and so they are your walking brand ambassadors, really. And the greater culture that you can build, the more successful your organization is going to be.
Yeah, I completely agree. Now, before I continue to just peg you with questions, is there anything that you were wanting to hit on in particular? I know I see some notes over there. Is there anything
These are just my notes from I was referencing from Lisa's
nice
note earlier. Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that there isn't anything that you had prepared that you wanted to talk about, because I'm going to keep going, because this is good stuff. I really like it. All right. So yeah, you got to have a world-class culture. You got to have the people. And that's the thing. Like it's almost one of those things where, like, it's not an and or thing. It's like, you got to have it all. Like, people want to grow their business. In order to grow your business, like, you either need to increase if you want to make more money, you either need to increase your prices or become more efficient. And you can't do any of that without people. Like, you cannot run more jobs without more people. You cannot, you would be doing yourself a disservice to pay for more marketing if you don't have the people to run the job. So if you want to grow your business, it's like it all has to be there, and it's all got to click. So with people being the challenge right now, what kind of opportunity do you see for contractors to, like smart contractors, not just your everyday, contractor that doesn't really care and just subs everything out?
Those who are listening to your podcast.
Yeah. The smart contractors that are listening to the world's best podcast. What opportunity do you see for them to kind of jump on? I don't really know where I'm going with this. All right. Contractors need people. And there are people out there, but we've been conditioned for some reason to believe that they don't exist. How can contractors attract these people into their organization?
I think, there's part of it that just stems with the work that we do as an industry to change the narrative and get people interested in the industry. I know personally, growing up for myself, like I said, I entered the trades very later, much later in my career, because it wasn't really an opportunity that had presented itself to me. For me, college was the path. You went in, you got your 4-year degree, and and that was it. And then you got a job. And we are doing, as a country, we're doing ourselves a disservice by not figuring out a way and a path by which we get people interested in the trades, and really seeing them as a solid plan A, a very viable, lucrative, solid plan A. And so I think with contractors, that's really going to start with getting involved in your community and showing and showcasing and sharing the great opportunity that is out there. It's the trades are all about when we're in early elementary school, you are building things, you're creating things with your hands, and there's such a sense of satisfaction, I think, that you get by creating something. And that's what the trades are. And so it's getting out there and getting into your communities to let people know that you can do this for your job. You don't have to sit in behind a desk that you hate. You can get out there and have this real gift of satisfaction to create something and make something.
Well, that's powerful stuff. That's really good. And I've even seen a few smart contractors, because all the people that listen to this podcast are smart. They've even been doing things where I talk about them a lot on the podcast. Rogers Heating and Cooling. They go down to, it's either their elementary school, or, like, I saw on social media the other day, they were like at an elementary school, like the truck was parked, it was all open, and the kids were like lined up to go see this truck. Like, from an outside perspective, you're just like, you just made that 8-year-old's day, and they don't even know why, but it was the coolest thing in the world to them. And that's going to stick with them forever. And it's going to continue to intrigue them into that type of career path as they get older.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's getting out there in the communities, and we have at Nexstar, we've got a sister organization, our nonprofit. It's called Explore the Trades, and that's their entire charge is to get people interested, and they've got supplies and resources to help contractors do just that, to get out to those elementaries and middle schools, and host career fairs and things like that, and get people interested in the trades, as, like I said, that solid plan A for millions of people that we haven't described it as such. And then once they get in, like we said, we were hire for character, train for skill. That's what one of our recruiting coach, Stephen Bush, hire for character, train for skill. And so once you get them interested in the trades and in your organization, then you train them, and then you show them everything from safety to tools to how to turn a wrench. Honestly, that's how we're gonna fill these seats and these open roles, because you're hiring for a technician, and you get a technician with 25 years of experience. Great score, but why is that technician available? Because I'll tell you what, great technicians are hard to come by. So again, we've got to build our own.
Yeah. Now we are at the Women in HVACR event, which, by the way, this is an incredible event. I've been to, I think this is like my 6th or 7th event of the year, and I'm already chalking it up as probably the best one I've been to. Just the atmosphere and the energy here is really solid. How can contractors, I just think the industry as a whole, how can this industry as a whole attract more females into the trades and also retain them into the trades and make it more normal for there to be female technicians and female install coordinators and et cetera?
Yeah, I think part of it just comes from modeling it, and organizations like Women in HVAC are doing that on a daily basis. I know at Nexstar's annual event in the fall, we've got a super meeting, and we have hundreds of people coming there, and it was in the course of the 5 years that I have been part of Nexstar, it's fascinating to me how the demographic has changed at our national meeting. It's refreshing, it's exciting, and I'm not just talking about gender diversity. I'm talking about diversity. I'm talking about age. I'm talking, it's just it's so interesting at our last national event. Excuse me. We had probably close to 30%, I'd say between 25 and 30% of our attendees at that event were women. And I'll tell you, 5 years earlier, my first super meeting, that wasn't the case. It was much more male dominated. And so it's incredibly exciting, even in that short amount of time, that 5-year amount of time, to really see the change that's happening in the industry. And I think that organizations like Women in HVACR, and this is my first time at this conference, and I have to agree, like, the energy is through the roof here, the networking opportunities, just being able to connect and build your network is instrumental, and so so important.
Yeah. So I have a table here for the listeners out here that want to hear an embarrassing story. I guess I misread something, and I didn't know that I was going to have a table. And so I'm glad I brought my table cover, but I don't have like any giveaways or swag or anything. Like, I don't even have a pen.
You had a handwritten sign, yeah?
Yeah, I had a handwritten sign that said Rival Digital, in parentheses, it says marketing. That's what we have on our table.
Looks just like your logo.
So I would like to thank the Lady Titans, Go Time Success Group, and whoever it was, or EGIA. They generously let me borrow some of their swag. So stop by my table and we'll give you some Go Time Success Group chapstick and a Lady Titan sticker and an EGIA printed handout.
Perfect.
So yeah. Anyways, but to attest, I said all of that to go back to the networking thing. I don't have any swag or anything on my table, but the people who have come up to the booth, as opposed to typical like trade shows, they don't really care about that. Like, I go to a lot of trade shows where people just walk up, they take your pin and they leave. These people, they walk up and I was like, sorry, I don't have anything, like any giveaways. And there was multiple of them that said, oh, I don't care. And then they're like, what's your name? What do you do? So The networking has been phenomenal here. All right, Carrie, before we go, last tip before we dip.
Like it.
If you were talking to someone right now who was about to start their own heating and air conditioning company, what is the number one piece of advice you would give them as they take the plunge?
Consistency. Do the same thing day over day over day. And if that's not working, change it, make a tweak, and keep going. And it's that consistency over time that is going to give you the results, because there will be ups, there will be downs, but I'll tell you that the people who win and the people who see success and craft and create their own future are those that have that consistency of action, that discipline to keep doing the work, even when the work is hard, even when the day is terrible. Do the work. When the day is great, do the work. So it's really that consistency to believe in yourself, to move it forward, and you can move mountains.
Wow, that's good stuff. Well, Carrie, thank you so much for joining me. This has been an awesome conversation, and I really appreciate you taking some time out of the event to come in here and chat.
Thank you, Eric. I really appreciate it, and I'll swing by your table later for some of that swag.
Yeah. All right, Carrie, before we go, how can our listeners reach out, get involved, or learn more about Nexstar?
Absolutely. So yeah, check out nexstarnetwork.com. You can learn more about Nexstar itself. Otherwise, find me on LinkedIn, Carrie Fraser. I'm on LinkedIn. Would love to connect with any of you out there.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for tuning in to another episode, and we will be talking to y'all soon.